Welcome back to another episode of Sales School. Today, we're thrilled to have someone who doesn't just sell to the C suite, he belongs in those rooms.
Karan Currie is the founder of Third Eye Advisory and someone who's built his career around navigating complex, high stakes relationships with some of the most senior leaders in the tech world. He's held leadership roles at Gartner, 451 Research, and S&P Global. And if there's one thing that he knows better than most, it's how to be relevant, credible, and useful in every enterprise conversation.
I've worked with Karan and I've seen his superpower firsthand. The ability to walk into a room full of skeptical executives and leave with trust, clarity, and momentum. In this episode, we unpack how he does it, from the prep to the positioning to the small moves that make a big impact.
So, if you're a founder selling upmarket, a rep chasing your first enterprise deal, or a leader coaching your team to close bigger, this is one of the conversations you'll want to replay. Let's jump in.
All right, Karan, are you ready?
Wow, that's the best introduction I've had to me ever. So yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. We'll start with some quick rapid fire questions. These are answers that are short and the first thing that comes to your mind.
Sure.
Let's go.
Yeah.
What is your current role in one sentence?
In one sentence, I support both my customers as well as people who work with me. Yeah.
What's one word your clients would use to describe you?
Trustworthy.
What's the hardest part about selling to C-suite executives?
It's not always comfortable.
I thought you'd say getting the meeting. What's one mistake most enterprise sellers make while entering a new account?
Not knowing enough about it.
Okay, let's go back to your origin story, Karan.
Sure.
You've spent years working with senior leaders at large tech companies.
Yeah.
What was your first big win, and what did you learn from it?
So, can I answer this a little differently? I don't want to talk about my first win as such, and you'll understand why. I had some time to reflect about why comfortable with senior executives, and I think it stems really from my childhood when one of my best friends' dad was the managing director and owner of Needle Industries in the Nilgiris. So if you see these pony, and anybody who's been to the Nilgiris, you'll see this huge pony while you're driving up to the Nilgiris. That's the pony industries, and they manufacture needles. So their son and me were best friends, and I spent a lot of my childhood with them. And he was an exemplary leader, but for me he was just my friend's dad. And I was really fortunate because he we this was a time when it was I was at the age of say 12 to 16 is when I spent most of my time with them, and that was the time he was actually grooming his kids as well, so teaching them a lot about how to interact with people, how to talk about things and things like that. And I learned a lot about etiquette. I learned a lot about respect. I learned a lot about listening to people, and especially listening, because I would see people come to him with problems, and he would never address the problem. Right? He would give them solutions that were completely outside of the problem that I heard. And one day I asked him, and he said, It's never really. There are many ways to address problems, and it's not really what the problem. You have to hear what people don't say when they are talking to you. And I think that's a lesson that I learned very early in my life, and I think being with him has made me comfortable around C-suite, because at the end of the day, I know that they're just human like us. Yeah.
What do you do to prepare for meetings with, let's say, a CMO of a multi-billion dollar organization?
Okay, so I have met many CMOs of multi-billion dollar organizations, and I can tell you that In most cases, I've met them before they were CMOs of the organization.
Lovely.
So I think it's important for you to also place your bets. I mean, if you're selling, and this is to people who are watching this, large deals and large accounts and things, place your bets early on the people who you feel are worthy of that next role. I would say, because that really pays off. For you. For those, and coming back to your question, if you're looking at large CMOs or any executive, it's really important that you go through, especially for large enterprises, earnings calls, go through the annual statements, go through anything that this person has put out publicly, uh,
Yeah.
right? Go through LinkedIn. I personally, I look at everything, right? I also look at the personal life of the person. So if on LinkedIn there is a golf, if he's playing golf, or if he's written about golf, or he's written about squash, or he's written about running, or he's written about things, I try to relate things to that as well, because I think, and Karthik, you know this really well, people make business decisions for personal reasons, right?
Yeah.
So you have to relate to them personally, especially if it's cold. Then I think you have to go in with a personal touch for to get these meetings. Yeah.
And that's interesting, right? I think you've touched upon something, and I think we've seen that through both the questions you've answered so far. It's how you build a relationship. You've mentioned really nurturing some of those relationships, being genuine, being authentic, and knowing them as people as well. And this is something that you've learned back when you were a wee lad, like they say, through your friend's father. But let's say you're in a meeting right now, and
Mhm.
there is one part of you which wants to break the ice.
Right.
There is another part of you that has almost real business to conduct, right?
Mhm.
This is not two friends meeting. This is actually two professionals meeting.
Absolutely.
How do you balance being strategic
Mhm.
versus tactical? How do you balance being professional versus personal? What is it that you are looking for as signals?
See, if you're looking at the sea level, right, then you have to be strategic at all times, right? They are you. They see. Remember that they have reached there and they have seen, 100 million salespeople like you.
Yeah.
If you're doing sales, right? So they can read through the bullshit very easily, right? And what they hate is when people who are tactical, right? So if you're trying to sell to a C level, I would say don't, because they're not the people who typically uh, execute
Yeah,
on things, right? They're the ones who are decision makers and who would eventually make the decision as to whether they like you or and whether they want to work with you, right? So I would say you have to be tactical at some point, but please don't be tactical in the beginning of a relationship. Focus on progress rather than closing, right? So focus on adding value, focus on progressing the relationship rather than progressing with the deal, because that's going to help you long term. And yeah, I see a lot of people be happy with something small. See, remember, these guys are extremely, extremely intelligent, right? When it comes to these things, they're happy to give you, say, 100K, right? Which is nothing for them, right? They give you 100K because you started being tactical a little too early, right? And that's 100K, and then you walk out of that door, and then this problem solved on both ends, right? But you're very happy with that 100K, and you say, oh, I've cracked this account, and you walk away. But that relationship is and you drop that relationship with the C level. I've seen, and I've made this mistake in a number of times, but I think experience will teach you that you need to have that relationship and be tactical with people who are executing, rather than with the person who's actually decision making, or the person who you have the relationship with.
that's your inner room. You have the C-suite of a company that you want to close this deal with.
Right.
but then you're saying that let's balance the longer play here. How do you show value when you are talking to this executive without it sounding like you're pitching to them?
Yeah. So one of the things but one of the paths that I take is co-creation, right? And I think it's important that you and whoever the C-suite is co-create what the next step is and what the value is within the thing, within whatever you're trying to do. And in that way, it doesn't come across as you're trying to push something. It's more about you are creating something with with this leader.
Let's also talk about times when things don't pan out the way you were expecting them to, right? Especially in executive meetings, things can get derailed or dominated very quickly. Um, so, how do you steer those conversations when, while respecting their time and authority?
I feel that if you're patient, there's a lot of times, C-suite goes silent, not because it's a rejection, but it's more of a reflection on their side, right? And I've made this mistake a lot where I tend to try to fill that silence, right? Because you feel that that silence is caused by you, right?
Yeah.
But I've learned, over the years that it's be patient and a simple icebreaker like maybe this is not something that aligns with you right now. If you could let me know what's top of your mind right now, and we can work on something like that, right? So bring it back to something that he has. Because these are C-suite people, they have 100 different things going on at the moment. It so happens that your meeting has come in when his board meeting is the next meeting, and he's thinking about that, right? But he's not going to tell you that. But there are different things that come in. So always try and stay relevant, stay human. I would say in those cases, there are times it's an outright rejection. Keep your relationship and walk out. But yeah, that's what I would do.
Awesome. So basically, reading the room and picking up on cues
Yes.
which may point to the fact that this may or may not be a priority for them is something you'd recommend
At
doing.
the moment, yes,
Yeah, got
yes,
it.
yeah.
So what are some of the signals that salespeople tend to miss?
There are lots of signals, and I'm talking to two salespeople here, so I don't. So each person has a very different way of picking up different signals from the C-suite. But a senior executive would never outright tell you what his problem is or what the challenge is, right? Because he needs to maintain that demeanor with you, right? Unless you reach that level of trust with that person. Even then, it's very tactical challenges that he would come to you for, right? Not the real big challenges, unless you're at that level, right? But reading between the lines, and so I think it's important to take a step back. You need to understand what is the vision of this person, what are his goals, right? And you need to remind him as well from time to time that this is what we're here for, and you should always in your mind have that as the end goal, right? Because that's his end goal. He might detour from time to time, but you should have that in your mind. All the answer to your question is really in the question itself. That's when you really get all the answers if you have that end goal in mind. And then there are a lot of things that you will hear uh, that can steer you towards and steer him towards his end goal. I hope that answers the
No,
question.
that's great. I'm going to follow up my follow up if that's a word, right? Like
Yeah.
imagine you're talking to you're in a conference room again, and I
Right.
put you in there twice now,
Right.
and you are pitching or let's say talking about your value proposition, and you find there are other executives in the room, but your main stakeholder is constantly looking at his or her phone,
Right.
right? In that situation or scenario, what do you do and what do you want to do?
Right. So I would pause in that scenario, and I would ask the main stakeholder if this is, if this is something of a priority for them at the moment, or should we talk about, is there something else that we should be addressing? Um, I would also check with the other, persons if whatever the, whatever I've said so far is relevant to them, or if we should move on to something, to something different. Many times, this has happened many times, and many times the key stakeholder would tell you exactly what the issue is. It could be something that he's dealing with, that's an emergency, or that's something tactical that he needs to do immediately, and he doesn't have the time to listen to you right now because thing. But you can reschedule in most cases. Sometimes it's not relevant, something else has become a priority, but if you address it, in most cases they will tell you what the priority is. Yeah.
And I think it's also your relationship that you've nurtured with them that gives you that almost that right to stop what you're currently saying and seeing if they're relevant, because you've maintained that thread throughout all your interactions with this person. I think what you said is very pertinent for someone who's a new enterprise sales rep. Sometimes you're so eager to explain your product or explain the value proposition of what you do,
Yeah.
you tend to miss the wood for the trees. You tend to realize that there is this other person there who,
Yes.
like you have said, is juggling multiple priorities
Yes.
and will address you, I think, with a different demeanor if you can very quickly identify the commonality between your priority and theirs, right? I think,
Absolutely.
and you need patience, you need nurturing that C-suite relationship.
Absolutely. And I think, just to add to that, and it might just go off track a little bit. A lot of times in these conversations, right, the problem is never something that your solution can solve, but it's something that you know how to solve, right? It might be somebody else or something, and that
Yes.
really builds a lot of trust if you're able to do that. If you go out of your path or out of your way to help an executive without anything in without expecting anything back, right? That's when you really move to the next level of trust with people. So whenever there's challenges like this, I'm really excited, especially if the other person is going through the challenge, because here's your opportunity to step up and really build and really be there for somebody, right?
And you mentioned two things, right? One is timing has to be right, because at that point of time the problem that they're facing might not be the problem that you are solving, right? So how can you stay relevant and how can you stay top of the mind when they do come across that problem that you can solve? And I think that is why enterprise deals are that much longer,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And as a segue to our next question, they are long,
Right.
right? Can you give us a particular time a deal was stuck,
Mhm.
and maybe for lack of a better word, how did you unstuck it?
Mhm. So I've had many deals been stuck. Especially if you're in enterprise sales, the kind of pressures, pipeline pressures that you have, you need to have deals that are not really mature enough also in your pipeline. So
Yeah.
they are stuck. I think, but I think the way I would say I unstuck it was, for lack of a better word, again, was I hope people don't start using this
No,
as
no, I hope they do. Yeah.
it's just,
Unstuck.
yeah. uh, being there, right? It's you don't always reach out when your manager says, "Oh, what's happening with the pipeline," and things like that, right? You need to reach out when it's relevant for the customer. Like if he has come out and done a podcast, or if he has come out, or if you see within your, and I come from the intelligence sector, so if you see something that might be relevant to him, it doesn't have to be a sale, but send them something that's relevant. That keep be on top of mind for that person,
Okay.
and then I've had people just when the timing is right, they come back to me. Right? So I have moved things out of my pipeline, but I move it to a personal pipeline. right? Where I know that okay, this is something that could come up, and I keep feeding them with information, especially, and that is really dependent on not whether he liked the product or so. So there was a challenge, and I have a great relationship with this person. Right? So I know that when because I'm top of mind, when there is an opportunity, he will engage with me. Right? It's just that the opportunity is not right now. Right? So I've moved it to my personal thing, and then I'll move it back to my pipeline when that opportunity becomes alive again. Yeah.
No.
I also want to dig into that a little bit, right? What you spoke about right now was how you're dealing with this person when a deal is getting drawn out and making sure you're top of mind and keeping it warm. On the other side is you as an individual, right? And now you have hindsight bias of knowing how enterprise deals work. But for somebody who's new or who's pivoting into enterprise, this long drawn can feel very demotivating. It requires a lot more endurance. So, what has worked for you over the years to keep yourself on top of things and not miss out on following up or just stay motivated?
So, see, when you're in large enterprise sales, right, your universe, and just for salespeople, but your universe, meaning your who you can sell to, is limited, right? So you can say there are only 100 people that you can sell to, right?
Yeah.
What I try to do is fill that pipeline up as much as possible, so that I'm engaged with a lot of different people at multiple times. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a little tactical when it comes to sales.
That's perfect.
When it comes to sales here, but yeah, you have to be patient, and you have to stay relevant, and you have to think, and you have to keep in touch with your prospect. Um, and you have to have multiple prospects, otherwise you're going to lose the prospect. If you have just two, and you continue to drive conversations with just these two, you're going to end up irritating them at some point, right? So you have to have multiple, you have to have a larger base, and that really helps, so that you space it out a bit. I hope that answers the question.
No, that's absolutely perfect, right? And I think just to add to what you said, Karan, I think there are two aspects to let's say a disheartened enterprise sales rep. One is a fresh pipeline will change that. So constantly looking at your top of the funnel, ensuring that there are deals in various stages, and just because you have a deal which is a stage four or a commit case, that doesn't mean you stop working on your stage one, stage two, stage threes, because months end, sometimes quarters end, but a new quarter starts, right? And I think that's something that most enterprise sales reps have to constantly fill their pipeline. And I think the next thing, and Karan's had some great managers that he's worked for, it's the manager rep relationship. And I think if you have a great manager, being able to constantly remind this sales rep that there is going to be a next month. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. I think that relationship starts to take more of a prominence to a disheartened rep. Not
Yes.
that Karan's ever been disheartened, but
No, I agree. And it's you need to measure, not one of the things that I see people measuring is your closure, right?
Yeah.
You're measured by the amount that you close. You should also, when measure yourself. So yet, yes, let your manager measure your closures. You measure yourself by the progress that you made in those accounts, right? If something is stalled, you still need to make progress within that account. At some point, right? There needs to be some touch point. There needs to be something. There needs to be, or you need to triangulate, or you might need to expand that triangle into a square, or a larger circle, or
yeah.
things like that. So as long as there's progress within the account, you should continue working on it.
And here's the magical thing about enterprise sales, right? If you do what Karan says, and you're constantly reaching out to different folks, what happens in enterprise deals is sometimes enterprise leaders move to other organizations and are replaced. And hey, this is someone you've had a relationship with in another organization,
Yeah.
and that deal could suddenly click again. So, if you put in the hard yards, like Karan said, you are constantly reaching out to newer people, staying connected. um, you know People move jobs, and you have to be there when someone that you are closely connected to lands in a job that which is part of your pipeline with a greater budget than he or she had before. So I think constantly staying alert, alive, and prospecting will pay you rich dividends.
Yes. Agreed.
What I'm hearing from the both of you is it comes across as a very interesting dichotomy, because there's a lot you're striving for on a daily basis, but at the same time you have to be very patient. So let me ask the both of you this, since I'm the only non-enterprise salesperson on the call.
Lucky you. Yeah.
But do you guys think sales has taught you patience, or were you both individuals who were patient when you began your careers?
Yeah.
Karan, you want to go first?
Sure. Yes. The short answer is yes. Definitely, sales has taught me patience. It's taught me a lot more than that, but patience is one of the things. Yes. Yeah.
So my answer is slightly different, right? I've never been someone who is patient. So the way I
I know that.
the way
That's
I scratch my itch, right, is not taking it out on the person that's saying no, because I do respect C-suite. But for me, and a lot of managers have helped me, do that is by creating pipeline, right? If and I remember, I'm going to call out Mankiran here, Karan, who's been a favorite of both of us. If plan A doesn't work, there are 25 other alphabets there, right? So
yeah.
I mean, that's where most of the magic happens, right? It's
Yes.
not plan A, it's B, C, D, and others. So I think being able to fuel your restlessness on other deals is something that will give you smaller wins, maybe, but eventually turn out well.
Yeah.
And you also have to have patience.
Yeah.
I will learn that eventually.
Fingers crossed. Um, just extending that line of thinking from patients, right? Every meeting doesn't end in a purchase order or doesn't conclude the way you want to. How would you define success in these conversations that aren't converting immediately, right? And what we'd love for you to talk about specifically is how you gauge whether this is genuine interest and it may not have closed today but can go forward, or they're just being polite and this
Yeah.
won't hold up.
Okay, this is an excellent question, Soumya, I'm glad I'm glad we're addressing this. Um, I think one of the biggest skills of a salesperson is knowing when to walk away, or knowing which deals not to go after. Right, you waste a lot of time going after the wrong deals. And I'll tell you some of the things that I use to engage to gauge this, and it comes with a lot of pre-prep. So your preparation on that particular account is really important, and your preparation within that account itself will let you know whether you can very easily walk away from accounts even before you've even spoken to that person, right? If you meet the right person within the first or second meeting, you would know whether this is something that should go into your pipeline or not. And qualifying, I think, asking the right qualifying questions as to whether this is relevant to you right now. Is this a priority? Is this something you would see that you might engage with in the future? Just qualifying questions that you ask towards the end of the meeting, once you've done all the building of trust and all of those things. Towards the end, you have to qualify whatever you've done, right? Those qualifying questions are really important. And yes, those qualifying questions will let you know whether whether this is something that should go in the pipeline.
And you've referred to a lot of things that you've done to stay top of mind and be relevant in a way that's memorable for a prospect. Um, Anything else that you think people should think about when they want to maintain momentum in such situations?
When it comes to enterprise sales, right? I'm assuming that you have that relationship with you, right? Taking the assumption that you have a good enough relationship with this person, then like there are personal milestones that you will reach within a year: anniversaries, birthdays, Diwali,
Yeah.
different things, personal milestones. There are also business and professional milestones that you will reach within a year. Pick what milestones are relevant to that person, right? That person might not want to get wished on his birthday, or might not want to, different things. So you need to pick what's relevant, right? Maybe he's traveling abroad, and that's something that you can maybe add to saying. So he's going to, say, Austria, and you've been to Austria, and you say, oh, you should check out this thing in Austria. Be on top of mind for him. Right? That's on a personal thing. Business wise, if there's anything that's relevant to him, from his competition, from his peers, from his customers, send him that. Be relevant at all times. I think keeping the customer warm is important, and knowing when to go back is also important. Yeah.
Awesome. We're nearing the end of our conversation, so we've got a few, almost like a rapid fire, but you can take slightly longer for this.
Sure.
What is one behavior or tactic you wish more sellers used?
So one really strong behavior was is but it sounds really simple, but I think listening is something that is really, really important in today's especially in today's, what do I say, scenario of or today's ecosystem of working, right? There are executives don't have time, right? And they say a lot of things very rapidly and in different mediums, and different platforms and different things that you need to really pick up and use, right? And you have to do it quickly, and you have to do it in a timely manner, and you have to stay relevant, like that. There's so much information that people are giving out on a daily basis, but we as salespeople are not listening well enough. Right?
Okay, let's take you back, right? If you were to start from scratch as an enterprise salesperson today, what is the first thing you'd master?
As a new person, I think there are two things. One is, of course, listening, and the second one is preparation. If you focus on these two things early in your career, it's I think you will go far. You should enjoy that process, right? I think that's important when you're a salesperson, is to enjoy whatever you're doing, especially the prep work. It's really nice to understand so much information, and you can, if you're a sponge, like me, you can absorb that information, and you can use it across different companies and multiple instances in your life. Um, so yes.
What is the one book, principle, or mentor that has really, shaped your approach to selling?
So Zig Ziglar is a huge influence in my career, right? And surprisingly, I started listening to Zig Ziglar when I was a manager. I used to manage a team of people before I moved to Gartner, and over there, for to train my salespeople, I used to listen to Zig Ziglar right, videos, and I've also been fortunate enough to go through the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People program, and also the Trust program. So that's another thing that has a big influence. That's another book that had a big influence. The next book was How to Win Friends and Influence People, is also a big book that
Yeah.
is also a big influence on me. So I would say Zig Ziglar, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and from a sales perspective,
Yeah.
those are the three things that really influenced my career. Yeah.
Perfect. And our last question to you is, and this is not sales related,
Thank
or
God.
could be. Um, what is, an act of kindness that someone did for you that you remember?
Ah, yeah, apart from my wife marrying me, that's there's a lot. There are quite a bit actually. I come back to where I am today. Right, I founded this company, which is with a bunch of ex Gartner people and things. Right, so not nobody had to really put their trust in me. Right, but there are some people who I have built a relationship over the years from different companies that I've worked with, who really took a chance and put their trust in me. And people like Dr. Swaminathan from Tech Mahindra, or Abhinav Kumar from TCS, who was not a CMO when I met him. Right, so I go back to the statement that I made. You need to identify people who are going to be moving into roles. Right, like Abhinav was one of them. I didn't need anything from him when I met him. Right? I wasn't selling to him anything. So there are a lot of people who've really who I tip my hat to today, especially when they are helping you with your own thing, right? Something that's
Yeah.
personal to you. It goes a long way, and I would never ever forget that. Yeah.
This brings us to the end of our conversation, Karan. I think there are some things I learned about you for the first time I've heard today, which was interesting. But what comes across is three things, right? Your attention to detail, and whether that's with the people you meet or the things that you do, the preparation that you have. The second is your ability to listen in most
Yeah.
conversations. Um, and I think that brings me on to the most important thing. And your superpower is to be able to have relationships with people across the board and really nurture them. And I think that's testament to who you are as a person, and as a founder today. So,
Thank
Karan, it
you.
was an absolute pleasure for me and Soumya to have a chat with you.
Same
Thank you
here.
so much.
Thanks so much, and all the best. Thank you.